Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Victoria? Yeah. If you can't hear me, raise your hand. Very good. Okay, thanks for coming out. It is about 6:06 in the evening. I want to respect everybody's time, so we're going to get going. We'll start off at the top with a few updates. We got a lot of fun things going on in town. First of all, we got a community meal coming up. That's going to be an open invite meal. There are 400 seats. Anyone who lives here or works for the city of North Kansas City is welcome. That's going to be at North Kansas City High School, Monday, the 23rd of March, 6 p.m. Please jump on Eventbrite. There are links floating around and reserve a ticket. Tickets are free. It's a pay what you can model, so you can bring a little cash to the door to help defray some of the costs for those who may not be able to pay. We want this to be open and welcoming to everybody. The genesis of this is to build community. The food is just the catalyst. We're going to get together. We're going to have some conversations. I'm going to force you to talk to people you don't know. Frank, I know that's your favorite thing to do, so we're going to make that happen. It's going to be magical. Second thing, safe streets for all. If you watched the last, this is going to be fun. If this keeps cutting out, we'll swap it out. Safe Streets for All, if you watched the last council meeting, we had a little bit of a review of Safe Streets for All. They did an analysis of the city. We've also had Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee working through some stuff. This is your opportunity on March the 10th from 5 to 7 at City Hall. You can come in and put some stickers on some boards, share your thoughts about particular areas of town that are dangerous. If you walk across the street and feel like you're in any kind of danger, come and tell them about it. They're going to start looking at ways to mitigate that. Next thing, Snake Saturday. Woohoo! We got Snake Saturday coming up. The theme is kicks and kilts. Looking forward to World Cup, but also celebrating the Irish Fest. That is Saturday the 14th. Going to be a big party. Comprehensive master planning process is kicking off. We're calling that NorthTown 2040. You will see some hype video from me that is being put together by our consultant. We're calling it NorthTown 2040 because the decisions we make in this master planning process will lead the city through the year 2040 and beyond. And we're going to have input from everybody, residents, business owners, frequent visitors. Everybody needs some input here because this is going to be a big deal for the city. We're going to look at all sorts of things: transit, infrastructure, corporate governance, branding, all the things. We're going to figure out how to tell people where we live, where they don't say, is that up by the airport? Or they can say, I think that's where Chicken and Pickle is, but we're going to figure out how to tell them where North Kansas City is, among other things. World Cup. We're gearing up for the World Cup. Has anyone heard of this party coming to town, coming to a city near you? That's going to be in June and July of this year. It's going to be a big deal. We have, last estimate I heard, 650 to 700,000 new friends coming to town. We're going to have a street fest. We're also working with our other Northland cities. This is my Go North KC t-shirt. We have kind of worked with the other Northland cities so that we don't trample on each other's watch parties. Every city kind of grabs a game that they're going to show in their space. We got the quarterfinal. We got the big kahuna. So we're going to have a giant street fest. We've got a district laid out. We've got an agreement now with the operator, the same folks who do Snake Saturday. We've got the insurance hammered out, I think. And we've been working through that. It's a tougher nut to crack than I imagined. We're starting to message out to businesses how they can participate, what they can do, some street opportunities where you can set up a little cafe in the street and serve drinks and food. Next thing, last update at this point is we had a couple council seats that are turning over. So Connor Fitzgerald is moving from Ward 3 to Ward 1, so he has to resign his seat as he transitions to a new ward residence. And I'm going to be nominating Dylan, who is here, has chaired the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And the way I say it each time I get the chance is Dylan has just shown up and done things in just a remarkable way. The best way I can point to that is when he asked me if we could have lunch to chat about a couple things, and he brought a printed agenda to lunch, and that was just amazing. And that's exactly how I like to see things done. Very good. And then Amy Clark has announced at this past council meeting that she will be moving to Kansas City. Boo. We hate to see her go. We have loved working with her over the years, and I am going to be nominating Cynthia Larson, who is here with her lovely family here. She has put her name in to run for the ward seat, the only other person on the ballot, and so I am naming her. She's also a member of the Parks Board, the Parks Foundation, and a charter member of the Parks Foundation, and on the North Kansas City School District Foundation. Okay, those are the updates. Then some ground rules for the meeting. I go over this at the top of every meeting. First thing, assume best intent for everyone here. Anyone who gets up to speak, share their thoughts or ask a question. If you disagree with them, think about that. If you agree with them, think about that. Ponder why somebody has chosen to say what they're saying. We're all here because we love North Kansas City and we want to see the best for it. Second, try to give everyone a chance to talk who wants to. I appreciate hearing all thoughts and ideas. Try to avoid monopolizing the microphone. So if you have something to say, share your thoughts, happy to hear it, but don't take all the time. If you have something to share, please come to the microphone. Fun fact, that microphone is not turned on, but similar to this microphone here, there's one on that one to pick it up for the recording for our friends who will watch this at home, who could not make it out tonight. So I will not be able to hear you unless you speak into that microphone, and I do enforce that. With that said, who has a thought, question, or idea to share with the group?
Okay.
Oop.
Now that Royal Stadium is apparently not going to happen here, is there any word, rumors, or anything you can share with us what the Merrimans or whoever it is that own all the property, what their plans might be?
Sure. So question was about the Royal Stadium. Yeah, effectively, you've seen the statements out of Clay County. You've seen the statements out of Johnson County. There's a lot of people that are saying time's up. The last communication I had with the team was shortly before the January 8th deadline that the county laid out. They called and said, we're not going to make that deadline. We're not going to get enough information to you to be on the April ballot. Can we have more time? And my response to that was no. The deadline was the deadline. But with that said, if they want to pick up the phone and keep talking to Missouri, keep talking to whoever will pick up the phone, private ownership, anyone else who will pick up the phone, they can do that. And if they bring us something back that is fiscally responsible, we're going to listen, but we're moving forward with that site as if they're not coming. We have kind of held projects off. We've been living in a bit of purgatory, I've called it, and that's not going to continue to happen. So I did sit down with Ed Merriman to talk about where he's at with all this, and he basically said the same thing. We've lived in this purgatory for a long time, so they don't have any concrete plans at this point of what's next. Royal Stadium was kind of plan A, B, C, and D, but they're working on some stuff. And as we talked, he started lighting up a little bit about what they could dream about might come there. But there's nothing really to share at this point. It's more just conceptually, there will be things going over there. And it will be a slower, more methodical build out than if we were to throw a stadium in and the whole area grew up right away.
I wanted to say thank you for, is it Frank, the Historical Society? You did,
Michael.
I'm sorry, I couldn't remember your name. You just did a fabulous job, and everybody should try to come. He's a wealth of information, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Absolutely, and I'll also throw out Mike is phenomenal. He is a wealth of information, a librarian by trade, and knows the history of this city and has brought out all the pictures. And if you follow, is it the North Kansas City Historical Society on Facebook? If you're not following it, you should, because he publishes all manner of crazy pictures of the old days. The one that I keep going back to is the bed races. I don't know where you found this one, where you dug it up, But we actually sat down for coffee this week and talked about maybe reviving some of these old festivals, breathing new life back into the bed races with the tall socks or the hearts and flowers. The more festivals he can dig up, the more ideas we'll have and that maybe we can put in play. But absolutely phenomenal job you're doing with that. Thank you. Who else has a question?
Hey, Jesse, I'm for the bed races. Also, any economic development updates you can give us on grocery stores or retail coming in or new restaurants or just anything in general?
Any
Thank
new
you.
fun stuff? Let me think, because some of the stuff is governed by non-disclosure agreements that we've, working through requests for proposals and all that. For the One North area, and for those who don't speak NorthTown vernacular, One North is the area on the east side of I-35 that used to have the Sutherlands and now has some apartments and a Starbucks and some medical offices, old Chicago, and a big, beautiful jewelry store. We put out a request for proposals, gosh, how long ago now? Middle of last summer. And we got some great proposals in. We've been working through those. It's a lot of contracting and negotiating terms and incentives and all the stuff. We put out primary request being grocery store. That's been the long-term goal. And we also asked for things that will generate interesting things to do, tax revenue, ideally not more hotels or living units unless they came along with something else. And we got some things that fit those requests. Can't share specifics just yet. We're hoping to have some things to share soon, but we're deep into negotiations on each of those things. As far as the other parts of town, you'll see there's a lot of not vacant storefronts, but ones that are being turned over. You'll see broker signs for rent, that kind of stuff. One that has gotten a spot, and you may have heard it a recent city council meeting. So there's the Rhino, and then there's the facial bar, and then there's the spot next to that. I think it's immediately next to it, right? That's been boarded up. That's going to be Latte Life, which is Life Unlimited's new concept. It is going to be a coffee shop for folks with disabilities to learn skills, job skills, life skills. And you can come in and get a fantastic cup of coffee and support folks who are trying to earn and learn. Just a phenomenal concept. There are other meetings and discussions being had about restaurants coming to town. Again, I've heard some names, but I don't want to blast those out there just in case it doesn't come to pass, but it makes me hungry just thinking about it. Some of the spaces, the old Calibration Brewing space, just around from Paul and Jack's. The old A&N hardware store is getting looked at by some restaurateurs. Even the Goodyear building that has been just kind of sitting there for a while. And I've dreamed big dreams about it, but that one is they're looking for a restaurant in that one as well. And then, I had one more, but I can't think of it. But if you know anybody who is a restaurateur looking to locate, every time, few and far between that my wife and I get to go out and have a nice date night, I will try to grab the chef or the manager and say, hey, come to NorthTown. It's a great spot to be. And they're always like, yeah, that sounds good. We'll get back to you. And then they finish cooking. So if you know people, send them our way. We're happy to have those conversations.
Back to the Royals thing. Is it your opinion, or I'd like viewpoints on whether it's good or bad that someone like the Merrimans can come in and buy up all kinds of property that then they don't have a plan B, C, or D?
Sure.
And how that affects us. Like, I miss the hardware store. It bums me out greatly that the only reason we don't have a hardware store is because they were gobbling up property. Yeah, I probably don't even know all the property that yeah. So, and is there anything that, if it's a bad thing, is there anything we can do to avoid it in the future?
Sure. First piece of that, I would caution the reasons that some of these businesses are no longer there. It's not always because somebody bought out the real estate. It might have been the other, chicken before the egg. Dairy Queen, for example, that was their thing. That wasn't, the Merrimans bought it. They bought the building simply because it was, yeah. But on the zooming out, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? It's been the way of North Kansas City since forever. So NorthTown DevCo platted the city. They platted the whole thing. They sold off the residential pieces, and then NT Realty owned effectively most everything south of Armour, other than a few choice buildings that the Miller family typically owns, and then a few other ones. But they owned the lion's share. Sold that off in 2020, I think, 2021. Okay, 2022. Sold that into two parcels, one to the Merriman family, one to, forget the other entity's name. But they now own the two big chunks. And for the longest time, NT Realty has just been running it as an industrial portfolio. That was kind of their thing. There were a few things like the bowling alley that was in there that was sort of withering on the vine. It had had its definite heydays in the 70s, 80s. Would have loved to seen that come back, but economic situations being what they are, it's hard to force things simply because we want them to be there. And I do have a faith that they're going to do something great over here. I just don't know what that is yet, and I'm not certain that they have crystal clear vision because, for lack of a better term, like their eggs were in the basket for the Royals plan. And then I think they had some ideas around like the footprint, but that footprint's been held in stasis because the Royals have kind of strung it along and along and along. And whether it's good or bad, it's private ownership doing private business things. We, as a city, we could allow zoning, we could offer incentives for different things, but private business gets to do what private business does. And that's a very unsatisfying answer in a lot of respects, but it is kind of that way. And we can work with them though. And that's what through the whole Royals process, as messy and chaotic as it has been, part of my goal is to build these relationships up. So when and if that didn't come to pass, or even if it did, we have good rapport and good relationships to say, like, wouldn't it be great if we had one of these? Bring us ideas and see if that's something they want to finance and build. So I do appreciate that they're here, they're willing to work with us. They spend a lot of time in North Kansas City. I see their team around. Ian DeGallen, who's one of their heads of real estate, is always around. The broker, Joanna Shaver, is local. And so they do have a team they've built out that really does understand what's going on here. I don't know if that answers your question entirely. Sure.
Can you give us an update on the shooting that happened? Was it Saturday night?
Saturday night. I cannot, mostly because I don't have an update. It is something that, the police department put out a request on social media and out through different news outlets asking if anyone has information. So if anybody does, please reach out. There were a lot of bullets fired. It was on 2100 block between Clay and, between 21st and 23rd. Scary situation. I've been very open about my stance on gun violence and what can we do to prevent it. It feels very chaotic and scary, but from my understanding, it is an ongoing investigation, and if anyone has information, please share it with the North Kansas City Police Department.
So my name is Bob. I'm a relatively new resident in North Kansas City.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. And I have two questions. The
All right.
first one, we moved into a beautiful little bungalow on Fayette,
Okay.
but I've heard people pronounce it Fayette. What's the correct pronunciation for my street?
Okay, let's do a quick poll. Who in here calls it Fayette? That's the answer.
Okay.
It is
Thank
Fayette.
you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
We were correct then.
Everyone is welcome here unless they call it Fayette. Don't know where you heard that. All right.
That surprised me.
Question number two.
Next question. I have a neighbor who's active in the community, and she told me some history of a couple of homes on 2115 and 17, and then the Presbyterian Church. The homes have been renovated, they're rentals or leased. What's the status of the church, and is there any plan for that building?
It's a great question. So the school district at one point when the church, so that the houses in the church were all part of a single ownership group. I believe they were parsonages of the church. And so when the church decided to close their doors, they reached out to the school district and said, hey, school district, we have property adjacent to your building. Are you interested? And they said, yes, of course we are. So the school district bought it. They came to the city, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and said, we'd like to tear all of that down, the two houses and the church, and create a surface parking lot. And it would solve a historic issue with parking in the city. And I believe that was really well intentioned because there's a lot of complaints coming out of the Fayette, Gentry, that area that students park on those streets. And so the school district saw an opportunity and thought, hey, let's solve it this way. What ended up happening is they held a couple listening sessions. They brought in members of the community, and in a resounding fashion, they said, the neighbors in that area said, please don't do that. Please don't tear the church and the houses down. We are short of housing in North Kansas City. And then they came to the city council for final approval, and it was voted down. So the school district then had two houses and a church that they couldn't bulldoze and turn into a parking lot. And so they listed it privately, or listed it with a broker. It was purchased by a private person who has renovated the houses and has them up for rent. And the last I heard, they're seeking a congregation for that church. I have sent that information to a couple of local church groups that are trying to find a home. I'm not sure where those have landed, but just kind of facilitating. But every time I look at it, the sign's kind of falling off and the boards are up on the windows, and we'd love to see some forward momentum on that, but things do take time. That's the last I've heard on it. Yep.
So while we're talking about property, Cerner campus and Denim and Diamonds.
Cerner campus, Denim and Diamonds.
What do we know?
Oh, man. So the Cerner, last I heard, the Cerner campus is quietly for sale for $2.2 billion. So if anyone in the room wants to put together a collection plate, they have also challenged the tax value. I believe it was tax assessed at like $75 million. And they said, we don't think it's worth that, but we're going to list it for $2.2 billion. We have also, because Cerner got a lot of tax breaks for that to be their world headquarters, and many of those incentives were tied to it remaining their world headquarters. So when that became no longer the case, we at the city said, they're going to be owing us some tax. So we put it back on the tax rolls. That's when the tax valuation argument started happening. And we kind of hoped that would spur them to come to town and discuss with us how they could get that asset that they're clearly not doing much with off their books. Well, it hasn't. When you have a company like Oracle with an owner who has more money than most, it's hard to incentivize them to do that kind of thing using money. So we've got requests out to leadership teams with Oracle to come and meet with us. We have concepts, we have ideas. The big struggle with that campus is that it was designed to be a single user campus. There's one meter for all the things. Like there's one water meter, there's one electric meter. It's platted without access to parts in the back. All the roads are private. And so to figure out how to develop that is going to take some work, but we have to have people to work with. And up until now, there was a point where they were going to come and meet with us, a little delegation from Oracle. That didn't materialize, so we're still working on that. And I know Kim has been just dreaming big dreams about what that could be. The hospital is looking for it at some of the buildings. So there's a lot of interest in that hilltop. And there's some beautiful buildings up there, just kind of sitting. And please, I've seen on Reddit where people will go into the campus and try to take pictures because it looks a little bit like Lumen from the show Severance. Please don't do that. It is private property and they have security patrolling. They'll cite you, and So don't. Just look at the pictures that others have taken. Denim and Diamonds is just seemingly a forever enshrinement to Luke Bryan being 22 years old, and the Miller Vortex bottle, a relic from like 2005. Both are on the window there still to this day. That property has a whole mess of history. You may know some of it. Many of us sit at McLean's and just look across the street and are sad about that being nothing. I know a number of business owners with a great deal of money have made offers, but there's really no one to offer to. The ownership is still in the courts. There was the owner passed away with no clear path of succession. And at this point, I believe the legal fees far outstrip the value of the property. And every time it hits the tax auction, it gets bought up by the legal team. So it's unclear how we're going to get that thing back. I propose blight options, and eminent domain is tricky because you have to have a public use. So we're exploring if you find a loophole in the code of some kind that can get that one back. I'd love to see it brought back to its country western roots. I will be leading the first line dance if we can make that happen. I heard a chuckle for that one.
That whole conversation just leads me to something I've tried to get you and the council to look at, which is a tax on empty houses, which could just as well be on empty properties of any kind. If they sit too long with nothing being done, there's nothing that could stop the city from charging a tax on them. It would be beneficial in a lot of ways.
Because you brought this up before.
I've brought it
know
up a
I've
number
asked-
of times.
I know I've asked the question. I don't remember what that answer was, but I remember when I asked it, it was something along the lines of like, we don't have the statutory authority to do that, but we'll run it back. If you know of some, shoot me an email because we'll run it through our legal counsel on that. I do know that I've learned some things about some of the vacant properties in town and where there might be a route to getting those put back on. I know. It's come through the grapevine, and I've been trying to work my way through the chain of conversations that it'll take. But there's a claimant that may have legitimate claim to many of the vacant houses in town if they'll choose to do the thing. And thus far, they haven't chosen to do the thing where they claim those rights and then sell them. They go back on the tax rolls. So I'm working through that at this point. Gonna have to get some other lawyers involved. But there are things in the background quietly. There are things being done trying to get, especially the vacant houses, because we can all point to a handful of them. Very frustrating because of how quickly things go and how valuable these are now that they're just sitting. Having targeted taxes is tricky, but let's have that conversation with the folks who know better than me about what we're actually enabled to do.
First, thank you for saying that about the Historical Society earlier. It's very touching, I have to say. So thank you again. While we're talking about blighted buildings, I was just curious, what's the story with the old La Quinta Inn?
Oh, how much time do we have? La Quinta is currently shuttered, I believe. I'm looking at the back. It's currently no certificate of occupancy. It's caught on fire twice now, and I'm wearing a fire department hat, so dispel the next sentence I say. It caught on fire a couple times and managed to not burn down. And so it is uninhabitable, but it doesn't seem anyone wants to fix it. And so again, private ownership doing what they do, kind of stuck. Is there anything else on that?
They're working with codes
Okay.
right now to determine whether or not they're going to restore it or
Finish
and rebuild.
finish what the fire started and start again.
There's also some litigation in there.
Of course. Litigation grinds everything to a halt at all times. Most often when stuff is just sitting in stasis, there's some sort of ongoing litigation.
I think this is Kansas City, but what was built beyond Cerner? The big
Beyond.
parking lot, they have all these white trucks? Off 210?
Off 210, out past, so that would definitely be Kansas City. Was there like a landfill that went in over there or something? I've seen the construction as I've driven out toward 435, but I don't honestly know. I try to, my bandwidth is absorbed with all the things that go on within North Kansas City. I can hardly track. The only one I've been able to keep any eyes on are the apartments up the hill there past the levee. Been tracking that one. What else?
I thought there was gonna be a representative from here here tonight.
I talked to him yesterday. He was supposed to speak to Asylum KC this morning, and I haven't heard back.
Okay, then I pivoted.
Sure.
So I have a question. Tom Barzy recently went over city committees in a meeting, and I just wanted clarification around that. So the ad hoc committees that we currently have, you introduced in May of 2025. You've described them as resident-led initiatives to bring recommendations to the government body for formal action if needed, your exact words. In many posts, you've described them as mayoral ad hoc committees. You've claimed that you created them repeatedly. Other people have thanked you for these being your brainchild. So Tom gave like a breakdown of committees a couple days ago in a work session, August 18th, 2020. He described what would make a meeting. You guys were discussing starting the EIC, how to start it, whatever. He was very thorough in that meeting, directly contradicting a lot of the things he said in the most recent meeting. So one of the things he said is that if it's a committee of the city, then sunshine law applies. The more involvement, the more it becomes a clear city function. So I'm just sort of trying to figure out, like, the committees are performing city-directed functions. They're including contract and oversight budget recommendations. The mayor, you were at that meeting in 2020, so you did hear Tom Barzy explicitly explain what an ad hoc committee would be versus what it wouldn't. So in the most recent meeting, before that, we also had the compost committee there who were breaking down all sorts of things. But my understanding is that a governmental body is constituted when it's formed by you, when they have like say in ongoing public business, which they do, when they report to the city, which they do, and when they utilize city funds, which they do on varying levels. So one, they were just asking for money for the compost thing. We know Kim helped get a bunch of things together. When you look at all of the things you've posted, they have like city labeling on them, and they were made by the city. So my question is, like, at what point does an ad hoc committee that's performing municipal functions fall under the sunshine law?
So the delineation, and when I ran for mayor, I set out ad hoc committees as a goal. I wanted to see more civic engagement. I wanted people to come up with ideas that I don't have, or ideas that I might have been thinking of but don't have the ability to implement, or there's just not an official city board to handle that. And I don't recall, I'm sure you're correct that Tom gave a presentation about the EIC in, I think you said August of 2020? August 18th of 2020. I don't recall the specifics of that one. What's that?
It's recorded, it was a public work session.
Okay, I can pull that back. This iteration of ad hoc committees, it's a term that I use simply to say, like, this is residents coming up with good things to do. And to have support from my office, from the city, but not being run or directed by the city. We don't allocate staff members to go to these meetings. We have, for example, the compost committee. I think they're doing great work. I have had no hand in what they're doing other than when they came and made a comment or asked for an item to be on an agenda and to come and request a program that needs some funding. And they make their pitch to the council. Council gets to decide if it has the merit to get the funds. And then we allocated money to see how it goes. Same with new resident welcome. We've got Neighbors Helping Neighbors, the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, and some of them take a much more formal look based on who's leading it. Dylan, for example, with the Bike and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, generates graphics that I can't even dream of making, and puts them out and publishes them, and the pictures are phenomenal to illustrate what the goals are, but they are not formal city functions. If you want to look at a formal one, that would be the Parks Board, for example. Those positions are statutorily appointed by the the mayor and approved by the council. Those are, and it is subject to sunshine laws. They have to meet publicly, take public comments, they have to correspond, and anything that they decide can be freedom of information requested. Ad hoc committees operate on a citizen-led basis, and I like, that's the best way I can delineate the difference between the two. Does that answer your question?
Not really, but that's okay.
Okay.
It's just the same thing you guys keep saying, but
Good morning, good afternoon,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Mayor. Yeah, I wish it was morning. I want to talk about two things.
Okay.
Or maybe some more. The Merriman property is a big chunk of the city right now, and the biggest thing we need is new residences. We saw the success of the townhouses in Northgate Village and how well they did. The property where the bowling alley and the Gold Buffet were is an ideal spot for that kind of development. I would encourage you, I know you can't force them to, but I'd encourage you to talk with them about for sale townhouses in that area.
Sure.
The other question I have is, I guess prompted by the Wilson Company presentation to the council last week. I have never seen such a lack of knowledge, or at least in my estimation what it was. They spent a lot of time talking about stuff related that's only controlled by MoDOT, why they spent all that time on it. Then they spent time talking about issues that has already been handled by the city council, such as the overpass on 10th Street over the railroad tracks. We're spending money. Yeah, we got a grant on it, but it seems like to me that needs to be better directed. I plan to go to
The thing on March 10th?
the hearing, the open house. It happens to be my wife's birthday. She's not very happy about that idea that I'm not taking her out to dinner that night. But I think we need to have a lot more citizen input regarding what they're doing, because I don't feel like they're thinking in terms of what a city resident is looking for. Example, they talked about speed bumps in the avenues and four-way stops. What we have right now is working fine. I live on 23rd Street. It's the only east-west street, two-way, other than Armour, north of Armour, that goes all the way through from Burlington to Quebec. I drive on it every day. There aren't problems on that street. Neighbors don't rush through. They're courteous. 23rd is a narrow street with a lot of cars parked on it, but people stop and let someone through. I really don't have any confidence in what that report was. Thank you. I'd like your comments on it, though.
I appreciate that. For your wife's birthday, though, that meeting starts at 5, so you could be in, get your comments, still make it to dinner. Yeah. I don't want you to miss dinner on our behalf. No, I do agree in principle that there were some things that they brought up in that report that have been addressed already. I don't know how long they had been working through that process, and some of them were more recent implementations. But it's hard to shake a stick through the city and not hit something that MoDOT controls. And I still want them to bring those forth. So when they did, for example, on the slides, they did hot zones where crash data and severe injuries, and that's valid. Like, that happened in our boundaries. Whether we have control over it or not, we can still call up Greg, the engineer with MoDOT, Greg Bolin, and say, hey, we got this report now. Look, like, it's not just us saying we think it's dangerous there. We can say, here's the data. This is dangerous, and we want to see some action. Same with the Bike and Pedestrian Committee. They do walk audits, and much of what was found in the walk audit, and these are phenomenal, by the way. If you haven't done a walk audit, I know most of you have, actually. I'm looking around like, hey, these are the people in the pictures. Good. They're great, and they get on the ground level, but a lot of the identified things are MoDOT right-of-ways. And much of that, I think, it's not because MoDOT's bad. It's because they're just not here to see and feel what happens on their specific traffic ways, and they're the highest speed areas of town. And so having that in a report is helpful. It's not, I wouldn't discount it simply because we don't have control over it solely. We can push. And then some of the ideas there, I think some of it is throwing spaghetti against the wall, finding out, what's going to stick the peanut about, right? Like I don't know. Maybe people love those things, but I'm not seeing that happening on 23rd in Howell, unless I could be convinced. I also think it's a function of people don't show up to these things. So on March 10th, I would wager, I'd go over under on George showing up. And not many other people are going to be there, and that makes me sad because I do hear from people. I hear from a lot of people, hey, I wish people wouldn't drive so fast on Name Your Road. What you said about 23rd, I have heard the exact opposite about your exact block, because it is a two-way traffic street with parking on both sides, and you get one vehicle through in the best times. And so I've heard people, hey, let's get rid of parking on one side. I said, well, there's a yin and yang to it. So there are things, and that's all the differing viewpoints as well, right? One person might regard that area as safe, and somebody else finds it just harrowing. And so we need all that input. And they're going to generate a report that's going to have hundreds of pages of findings, and many of them will not get implemented, but we can pick out the good stuff. And I think that's the value in it. Plus, it was mostly grant funded, which I appreciate. And it's also going to filter into our comprehensive master planning process. So this isn't just a standalone thing. This will plug into more of what we're doing in the future. I saw you get up and then you had to hold back and stand for a minute.
That's all right, I need to stand. I have two things.
Okay.
One is some of the vacant houses. And some with cars. I mean, you could go on Fayette and you'd think you were at Midway Auto Salvage with all the cars there. And I just can't see that can go on in some of the empty houses. And like that one we've had on Erie, probably 40, 50 years. I'm surprised that the homeless hasn't got in there and it's not had a fire.
Yeah.
I really am.
Yep.
But I think that these empty houses, I know who the owner is, but that's it. But I just think these vacant cars sitting in those yards is ridiculous.
Yep.
Second thing is Cerner. I've had a great idea about Cerner because we have the people that live on the senior housing. Okay, they live there. Okay, they have to leave. So if we had assisted living there, they've got everything there close to the hospital. Those people wouldn't have to uproot from NorthTown where they have their doctors, their insurance, their restaurants, you name it. They have everything that they came to NorthTown for, and now they can't take care of themselves.
Yep.
So if you could get assisted living in the Cerner, it's close to the hospital, it's close to the doctors, they're close to everything.
Right.
And I think that would be a wonderful place for that to be.
Yeah.
Just my food of thought.
I agree with you. And assisted living is in extremely high demand now, especially as the boomer generation is aging into the retirement communities, into more assisted living, pushing people who are in assisted living into full, or in retirement communities into full assisted living. It would be a phenomenal location for that. We still got to find the people to talk to start that process.
I mentioned it to a mayor about 10 years ago, and he said, well, the hospital, they don't build assisted living. That's not what I asked. I said, find somebody to do it.
Yeah, that's
but I
true.
have friends that have lived in the gardens. Now they've had to move like to Barrymore. They've had to move away from their environment that they've been here for 10 or 15 years. They've got everything. They got the cab, they go to the grocery store, you name it. And now they're uprooted from this, and they're way out, and they have their doctors and everything here. I just think that if somebody would really, can you push anything with that? As Cerner and Excite, whoever owns Cerner now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if I've heard from other people on this same thread, and I've met with people who build and do quite well with these sorts of communities. It's finding the people to show up and have the conversation. And like I said, we had a delegation coming from Oracle. They didn't show up. And until we have that, it is still their property that we can't force them to do anything with. And we can just keep asking, keep
used
on.
to work in the building. The facilities are there.
They're there. They're beautiful. Yeah.
You know, there's no reason it couldn't be a success. I worked in there for 10 years. And anyway, just food for thought.
Appreciate you.
Okay, so to piggyback on that, because I think that's a great idea.
Sure.
Because NorthTown does, we could be a community for all ages, right? And we're close.
Yep.
But she's right, that as soon as someone needs something beyond the gardens, there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So dream pie in the sky, why couldn't we go for a European model and a living community that was an all ages community? You read about those where there's families with small children alongside nursing homes and assisted living. I mean, that's pie in the sky.
Sure.
But wouldn't that be cool if NorthTown was one of the first of those instead of a typical U.S. situation, which is a corporate entity that makes a lot of money off of poor old folks that need
Right.
a lot of care.
Right. No,
So that's my
it's,
pie in the sky idea.
that's beautiful. And to be fair, we are a community for all ages, gold level recipient. So we're doing well as far as it goes now. We do have a lot of ability and options for interaction between folks of all ages, aging in place, to come to the Parks and Rec building on any weekday. And there's a lot of senior programming. So we do have a lot to offer, but you're right. Like it's that final bit where it's that true assisted living that we just don't have. And that, I mean, it does come from somebody needs to propose to finance and build that. And that's the tough part, is we could want it all we want until somebody shows up and your townhouse suggestion, mid-density, owner occupancy, all the buzz terms, that's great. Similar to when we put out a request for proposal at 23rd and Swift, people just aren't proposing to build these things. And that's unfortunate because yes, the row homes in Northgate are phenomenal. A few people live there and love it. It's hard to get, for a number of reasons. One that just keeps echoing back each time I've brought it up to developers is it's sort of a pseudo condo model, and condos are really challenging right now because insurance is going crazy. And so if you are in a shared building situation, HOA is dealing with this now, figuring out how to handle shared insurance where people don't get to make that individual decision, but the decision gets pushed across the expense line of everyone that lives in those buildings. That's the tricky part. But there are models, garden apartment style, where they are technically single family, attached, but around courtyards. I've looked at all these different, they're all beautiful. What I'm hearing now is the ground is so expensive and the infrastructure is so expensive to build and build in, that they want to build as many units on that ground to make it pencil out. Otherwise, either they need 150% incentives in some cases, or they just can't build it. And that's my read on why nobody's proposing them. Anytime we put out an open request for proposal, it just doesn't come in. So that's my soapbox. Further questions? Yes, sir.
I'm going to raise this up this time. That
It's
was
not on.
challenging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to echo some of the stuff George said. I watched the council meeting with the Safety and Action Plan Consultant Group's presentation. A few things raised my eyebrows as well, or eyebrow as well. You know, I live in Ward 4, so I want Ward 4 to be like priority one, like straight up and down the list.
Yeah, of course.
I will, you know, also encourage everyone, you know, we mentioned walk audits earlier. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee did a great one in Ward 4 recently, which that report was submitted to the council. And we are not consultants. We're not a consulting firm. We're actual citizens who are going out and walking the streets and collecting the data. And I just think, you know, I can't thank everyone who worked on that report enough, because it's just amazing the amount of that effort that went into it. And so many people, it was like 20 degrees out that day
Yeah.
with howling wind. And like, we had 20 people or so come out for that. We had a state senator, I believe.
Eric Wood, state
Am I
rep.
getting that wrong? representative, state representative, someone from the Clay County Health Commission or Health Board was there. So, you know, we have these MoDOT issues, but this is a great way, if we can get these people to keep coming out to these walk audits, to get a little help in Jefferson City to sort of grease the wheels on some of these MoDOT issues.
Yep.
So we have another one coming up. It is on March 28th. So that's Ward 1 this time. So everybody, please come out.
Ward 2.
Ward 2. I'm sorry, Ward 2. So everyone, please come out to that, and let's do the same as we did for Ward 4.
Excellent. Do we have a muster point for that one?
The Longview Market.
Boom. That's right. There you go. Do we have a time for the record? Okay, still working on it. Okay, 3:28 Longview Market. Stay tuned for the time. And it should be warmer than 20 degrees. Yeah.
Oh God, this is embarrassing. Okay. Hi, I'm Bess Bailey. Two of your SEAC representatives are here tonight. That makes 50% of us. Kathy and I are here, and we'd love to introduce ourselves to anyone who's interested in learning more, or anyone who's like, SEAC, what is that? Because we changed names and you still don't quite remember. I had to think of the acronym myself because it's hard going from 8 years of one thing into a different name. But if you're wondering, we'd love to talk to you about it. It's the Community Involvement, Enrichment Advisory Committee. There you go. See? 8 years of one thing is hard to change. But we'd love to talk to you about it. Again, it's me and Kathy. Unless you're here with something else and you don't want to talk about it, then 25% of us are here. And I would love to talk to you about it. But this is the biggest captive audience I've had with it. So again, Bess Bailey, I'm sitting in front and I would love to talk to you about what we do.
Excellent. Thank you. And thanks for being part of that. We currently have a 9-seat board with 4 seats filled. And per the bylaws of the Community Enrichment Advisory Committee, we are at the at-large phase. So typically, you have to live in the ward for a council member to appoint you. Now, because these seats have been open for long enough, over a month, we are at large. So anyone in the city can apply for any of these open seats. So reach out to your council member and let them know. Or reach out to any council member or me, and I will push it along.
I'm going to follow that.
Okay.
So if you don't know me, I'm Kathy West. I live on 23rd. Where's George at? George is my neighbor. I have a bone to pick with you.
Okay. Good.
You stole Dylan. Not, you know, he's been my child. I introduced him to a bunch of people. We got started with something great, and you took him. So that means when I have a request, yeah. I do have a question for you. Airbnbs for FIFA. I know that Kansas City has passed something that lets a lot of people do this on a temporary basis. Have we thought about doing anything like that? And to piggyback on that, I haven't heard a lot about what North Kansas City is going to be doing, and I think we might be missing an opportunity if we're not, putting together something that showcases all of our wonderful businesses, because we have so many, local to us business, and we have people coming from all across the world, and they're going to be really interested in what we do here.
Okay, first topic, the Airbnb piece. That did come to council shortly after Kansas City, Missouri kind of opened up. Parkville also opened it up. Not sure where Gladstone or Liberty landed. We can talk to them on Friday. Our council decided not to not make it, basically not change how we currently operate, which you can rent out on a short-term basis if it is your primary residence. So if you want to bounce out of town or go stay somewhere else and rent out your home, you still have to pass a whole bunch of inspections and get bigger fire extinguishers and interconnected smoke alarms and all the things. But if you do all those things and get your license, you can rent out your primary residence for World Cup. And that, to put a fine point on it, that is for fewer than 30 days. Anything over 30 days is considered long-term. And that's a different set of rules. That's the decision for Airbnb. Other cities are doing a different thing. Second piece is, we haven't talked much about it in these sort of settings for World Cup, but my goodness, there have been just crazy amounts of info sessions for businesses and for how cities can interact with this. I do know that we are getting one of the major park and rides. So there's going to be a lot of friends passing through North Kansas City. The bowling alley site and the big parking lot that is typically where the Snake Saturday Carnival is, all of that is going to be parking for World Cup for people to get a direct line to FanFest and to, which is unique here, I think we're one of 4 sites that can get you directly to Arrowhead. And so lots and lots of opportunity here. Kim went around to all the businesses through the Street Fest corridor, and there's a Street Fest map that I think we've shown at the recent council meeting. It looks like a big cross with Town Square kind of making a little snarl in the middle. It looks a little bit like Maui's Hook from Moana, if you think about it. But we're doing all sorts of things with them, with those businesses. We are trying not to promote too much while other cities are doing their watch parties. So we're not, like if we've had our group of friends in the Northland, the Go North KC group, we don't want to be like, hey, everybody come to North Kansas City, but Riverside is doing their watch party. We're still going to have people here. There's going to be a lot going on. And the businesses are getting a lot of tools and a lot of coaching and emails that are paragraph after paragraph of how can you prep for World Cup, almost to the point where it's too much to take in. But there's a lot of discussions happening. But we will be having a huge street fest here in NorthTown, July 11th for the quarterfinal matchup TBD because it's quarterfinals. But we also have 3 of the top 10 teams in the coming to our metro area, which is wild. The reigning champs are going to be here. It's insane. There's a ton of opportunity. I agree. So keep your ears up. There'll be lots to talk about. And Northland Festivals is managing it, and they're also like laser focused on Snake Saturday right now. So once we get past that, you'll probably hear more from them.
So I know we've done some preparation there. So when it comes to immigration enforcement, me and another community member did meet with Asylum Clinic already. And I personally am wondering, as far as the city is concerned, there's like 4 major points that we could be doing something. Doesn't seem like we are. One is transparency. One's information and public awareness, preparedness. One is the police department's policy and training, and the other is establishing like reporting and oversight. So in each of those, I'm sort of wondering like where we are as a city. So can we, as a city, clarify the cooperation limits that we have with federal agencies? I know Tony's told me already that not a 287G agreement, but like we already do have various agreements with the federal government that have existed for years. Clarity around those, clarity around what we comply with, warrants, administrative, judicial, publishing the NKCPD's policies on detainers, data sharing, traffic stops, and federal requests. And then for information and public awareness or preparedness, you've already said that you would that's something that you would push out. Asylum Clinic is preparing a couple of documents. Is that something that we can guarantee the city would print and put around and make sure that people could have access to it? Various Know Your Rights, what schools can do, a bunch of other things. But is that something, and individual preparedness for like affected families, which honestly we would probably go with the YMCA library. But are these things that the city would commit to potentially printing on behalf of community members and Asylum Clinic?
Sure.
And then the last one is, would the city consider creating a reporting channel if at any point immigration enforcement becomes more active in our city? It's not necessarily that our city government can stop them, obviously, but there are compliance limits. And beyond that, what we're seeing is a lot of civil rights violations, constitutional violations. Is there a way that our city could have a documented process for reporting these types of things if you either witness or have an interaction with an immigration enforcement agent, to have these things documented so they don't disappear into a vacuum, so that our city attorneys, whatever, can review them, not necessarily to take action, but so that we have a clear list of all of the times that people had their constitutional rights, Anyway, so beyond that, and then can we get clarification from the PD on whether or not we have a 287G agreement with the federal enforcement, or with ICE, and if we plan on potentially doing that at any point?
Okay, I will try to address. Oof, that was a lot. What's that? Yes. So it's a thorny issue. There's my personal view on it being atrocious, what's being done, and feels very intentional to instill fear and just cow people into hiding and to eventually just self-deporting. Like, all of that sucks. Like, there's not a better way to say it. Choice of words evades me. And then there's we are a city, a third-class city in a state that has certain things we can and can't do. And that is very frustrating. But for us to commit to something like publishing what's put out by Asylum or AirKC or any of those organizations, that's a tough thing to commit to, because we have to be certain that anything we publish has to be vetted through legal processes. So I put out a statement on Facebook about my feelings on this, and had to caveat multiple times, this is my personal view, because when I sent my first draft to legal review, it got just chopped to pieces. And so we have to be really, really careful about what advice we give, especially if it's about how to interact with agents, federal agents, what to do. You know, I've seen a lot of guides put out from various immigration assistance organizations that say, you know, don't answer these questions, or only offer identification under certain circumstances. I'd love to be able to publish that. I really would. And I think there's some good information out there. As a city, I don't know that we can commit to printing and distributing that, but we can point to those to Asylum KC and AirKC. I was hoping that, like I told you, I was hoping to have a rep from AirKC. Trinidad from AirKC is excellent. I spoke to him last night. He was going to reach out to Asylum because they're one of the top groups in the metro, and they're right here in North Kansas City, co-located at McCrummen. And I'm hoping at a future meeting to have them out to answer these sorts of questions, because they know better than me. Like, they're the legal people. What I took away from a discussion I had with Trinidad, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but my overarching takeaway was the advice was to not try to make headlines, as a lot of people are, like you'd see it in Minneapolis, well-intended people are out there, they're getting involved, like they're throwing themselves between officers and immigrants, well-intentioned, and then they're getting arrested and I mean, in the most extreme cases, actually murdered. And like, this is terrible. Like, this is a rough thing to be watching. It's terrible that it's happening in America. Unconscionable. Like, I'm very frustrated by what I see. But his advice was to not be putting yourself in harm's way, not trying to make headlines, but playing the long game and working through legal funding to ensure people are getting due process, that when they are detained, that they are treated correctly and that they have the legal funding and protections that go along with that. And Asylum does a lot of that work, and AIR points people that direction for this sort of thing. That's where they see they're making the most success in that strategy. I know there were more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
So one, correct, legal aid is the most important thing that you can contribute to right now, because
Make sure you say it in the mic.
immigration enforcement is a civil issue. It is not, you are not given a public defender, so anything, if anybody wanted to contribute, that is the best way to contribute to a legal aid fund. But what I was asking about information is, this is just constitutional. Like, we're not asking you to tell people to go fight ICE or anything. Sure. We're asking, like, very clearly legally vetted, these are your constitutional rights, making sure that everyone knows those. And then as far as family and individual preparedness that is actually centered towards the affected families, like I know you said, like we'll help. Cool, but like, how are you actually reaching those families? Because as of right now, if you look around this room, as with most meetings, same people, same things, and we've tried for years to do things about that. So my real question is, like, so we're talking about preparedness for families. So a lot of those things are just constitutional rights. So you know, but again, even with asylum, we talked about, like, some of it's not clear. So having like a clear understanding of the process from beginning to end, when you get detained, what happens, what are your rights? But these would just be legal, like constitutional rights. And then the preparedness part would literally just be like, making sure that you contact an attorney ahead of time, have a number written down. One of those things that they're asked to sign basically self-deports.
Right.
So, and they get lied to about. There's like a lot of lies that happen to try and get people to sign those, but realistically, in talking to Asylum, they even said like, probably better off maybe signing one of those rather than sitting in a detention center for a long time. But a lot of that comes down to, are you prepared? So if you got detained, not that, just saying, thinking about it like this, you would want to know that your daughters and your wife and everybody is cared for, that the school has, like, you have continuity of services. As a city, that's what I'm asking, is that we can get that, like, love that Asylum Clinic is doing it, love that some of us community members are out here doing it. I'm asking that you guys connect with these people. Asylum has already agreed to come in. They would have we talked about for a donation-based type thing, like they would potentially do like a legal Q&A where they would just not like, just legal advice, but not like they are not your lawyers, but you could pay, maybe you have a question about something.
Yeah.
But they also agreed that they would be willing to do like in a school setting and or in like a more community type setting. But what is the city doing? Like, I get it that it's like a touchy subject and you can't do a lot, but there are things that you can be doing.
Yep.
So like connecting with these people, getting the answers that you need, and then developing those things. Like that is kind of what you said a few months ago or a month ago, that's what you would be doing. So
yeah,
what's happening?
Yeah, and I am trying. Getting information from folks who live this every day. Getting not sensationalized or anything like that. Like the people who are boots on the ground, learning from them. Hoping to be able to host. I really did. Like I hoped they were going to be here tonight. I never got a guarantee. So for next time or for even a separate event, and I've talked to SEAC members about how can we reach communities who don't typically show up? What can we do? Is it putting things multilingual? Is it showing up at celebrations in Mackin Park? Like there are a lot of folks in our community who do not engage for one reason or another, and I want to know what those reasons are so that we can overcome those. And any help is welcome. Honestly, like if you know how to reach out to people and get them involved, I want to do that.
I want to come back to another subject you mentioned. The study that's being done on our safe streets or whatever it's called. You said it's all grant money. Well, that may only have been a penny that came out of my pocket.
Sure.
Of the total amount, but it came from taxpayers. It didn't come out of some wonder chute that just falls down to you. That's the responsibility you and the city council have to use our money properly.
Right.
And sometimes I don't think that happens. And grants don't come about just because the federal government or the state government gave it to us. That still came out of our pockets.
Sure. You're correct. And yeah, we're doing our best to spend wisely and be good stewards. Sometimes we can debate on whether money was spent good or bad. I see some merit in the study. Some merit, some. Maybe ROI was small, I don't know. But I do think we need to be doing these sorts of things to not get complacent. And then if something bad does happen, we were just caught unaware. And I think that's a big piece of the utility of these studies. But you're right, like money gets spent, we can debate policy-wise, was that a good decision or not?
I'm going to circle back on two subjects, actually going to kind of combine them together. Talking again about immigration enforcement and then also the World Cup. With World Cup coming up, I have to believe that there's all sorts of new contracts and stuff for public safety. And, we already have a lot of tools here with CCTV and things like that. I think there would probably be license plate readers involved. I don't know, whatever kind of tools at the disposal of public safety ramped up in the name of this big groundswell of people coming in for the tournament. A lot of those resources are going to last after the tournament. What kind of strings can we put on in case there's any kind of overreach by federal agencies and things like that want to maybe use some of those things, to quell protest or things like that? Do we have any kind of strings we can attach to? How can we enforce those too? Like, what are our limitations there?
Yeah, that's a good question. That is, I'll be completely honest. I do not know. I saw just, was it yesterday or the day before, they announced like the 80 million flowing through the metro for public safety and how that was all going to get chopped up and allocated. I'm not sure what, if any of that comes to us specifically or what we're getting for that. Much of those happen at the PD level, and it's kind of a need to know sort of thing. But we can ask, if there are strings. A lot of the stuff that we would be, if we were to propose to go down that route, would get preempted at the state level, just because Missouri likes to preempt pretty much everything. And then third class cities have just so much authority, but we can ask the questions. Like, we can take that to Tom Barzee and find out what, if anything. And we're also, like, we put out some feelers to constitutional lawyers on like what can and should we be able to say about immigration enforcement activities. And we haven't, I don't know if have we gotten much response out of that? Okay, I thought I hadn't heard anything, but I wasn't sure, it just hadn't made it back. But no, I honestly, I don't have that answer for you. We'll look into it. It's about 7:15. I've got about 15 more minutes. We can keep talking. What other questions do we have?
Are you sure? Can you say with certainty?
I can't hear you. I can't.
It's a small question. You said that no one from the Royals was talking anymore about coming here, but can you say with certainty they are not?
No, we haven't talked to them since. I haven't talked to the team since.
They haven't talked to anybody.
They're talking to people. That I do know. I don't want to give 100% of anything. And I don't want to give the impression that we're out like asking them for anything at this point, but the best way I can say it is unless and until they decide that this is their one and only site and they put together a plan that is fiscally responsible, that voters would then approve, which again, tall order, we're not engaging. And I've told the team that. So it's unlikely at best. And I said it when I was running for mayor. At the time I said, if Kansas is gonna put all that money on the table, you should probably take it. And then the Chiefs did. And I've said over and over through this process that teams don't get deals like that anymore. And then Kansas gave the Chiefs all the money. And then Missouri got very aggressive in there. But right now it sounds like downtown is shooting their shot. And anyone I've talked to in those discussions said, best of luck. If the Royals announce a downtown location, I'm cheering for it. Like, good, get it done. The one thing that frustrates me is in Kansas, there was no vote of the people. It's like a few people in the state capitol get to make that decision. And then it filters down to the counties and the cities to kind of get in line or don't, but they kind of have to. Love it or hate it, in Missouri, it's the other way. So the team had to come to the city and the county and the people. And if they were going to get a sales tax in Clay County, it would go to a vote of the entire county. And that is risky for a team and for good reason. And so it's a path. I mean, Clark Hunt was on the hot mic saying, we got to deal with 3 people at the Kansas State Capitol, and that was that. And now the rest of the mayors and everybody else is like, they're having council meetings that are packed houses, people yelling at them. It's reminiscent of when Armour Road got finished. People are coming in shouting they need to go to jail, and then they're voting it through because what else are they going to do at that point? And I'm glad that we are not in that situation. So I'm not going to say again with 100% certainty, but I don't see it happening. And I think many council members would echo that sentiment. I'm seeing nods. Any further questions? All right. Thank you all for coming out. I really do, I love doing these. I love the questions. We're going to do more of them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great night. Oh, sorry, there are flyers over here. There's new resident welcome guide and the community meal flyer are over here on the chairs. Grab a handful, give them to our new resident friends, and put one for the meal on your refrigerator.